Welcome to AgriCulture Live. My name's Rebecca Shields. Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss this. It's a great episode. We'll be diving deep into the theme of how do UK farmers go from value adding to wealth creating, which I'm sure will be of great interest to a lot of UK farmers out there. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the chat box and we'll come to them when we can. So over to James. James, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, yes. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you very much for having me on AgriCulture Live. It's a great pleasure to be here. And just a quick background on myself. I'm director of Siggs Co. We're a farm business consultants, which my wife and I founded on the 9th of August, 1995. So we are approaching our 30th birthday.
Wow. That's excellent. So tell us about your background. How did you get into the agricultural industry and why, James?
Well, I come from a farming family. Both grandfathers were first generation farmers, but all tenant farmers. And at the time, really, basically all of my farms, my family were tenant farmers. In fact, my brother and I, the first farmers, Siggs I know, to actually own the farm. But when I was young, having grown up with all this farming, my mother, my aunts, my grandmothers never said, don't go into farming, there's no money in it. But I wasn't to be persuaded. So I set out thinking, I'll become an electrical engineer, looked at all the options, even a lawyer, my sister's a judge, and said, no, that's it, perhaps I'll be a land agent. So I went off to Y College, read agricultural economics, got more and more interested in the farming side of it, ended up milking cows in Saudi Arabia after college, worked at home for a bit, then managed a local farm. Then I joined Paul's as an agronomist because I couldn't see any real future in being a farm manager. And they plucked me out of Kent, Sussex and Surrey, sent me off to Indonesia as an executive in a plantation company there, 50,000 hectares of oil, palm, rubber, tea, coffee, cocoa, 12,000 employees. I knew nothing about it when I landed. And did that for a bit and then got into consulting with the same company. When the company was sold, we formed Siggs Co to take over the consulting business that we were doing, and it's gone on from there.
So you own Siggs Co. So tell us about the company and what it does.
Well, until 2018, all our work was done overseas. We worked in about 30 countries. Advising and managing large farms with diverse crops and livestock, basically for multinationals like Unilever or very wealthy people, billionaires, that sort of thing. We've also done privatization and development aid work. We got into farm plastic recycling, not for very long. We had our own farm in North Devon, 10 years, which we ended up actually running as an experimental farm for our own work we were doing overseas. So we got into no-till, rotational grazing, complete diets, all that sort of thing. And then in 2018, so we didn't want to do traveling all the time, and we ended up doing more and more work in the southeast of England, advising farmers on government schemes, soil nutrients and business planning. And with our son Charlie joining us in the business, we're doing more and more work on regen and the related agronomy.
Okay, so what makes you guys stand out from your competitors?
Well, we're really happy. So, not like Clarkson's farm, who has a cheerful Charlie. We have the really cheerful Charlie. And people have called me Jolly James or Jovial James. So that's it. And I think that's because, we're always looking forwards towards the opportunity and sideways to see what the competitors are doing. That's really what we're looking at. We're looking to be positive about things and how things can take an existing situation and build on it and use people's strengths and their opportunities there are so everyone can get the best out of it. We've always worked alongside our clients and working with them rather than, we're not trying to boss them, we're trying to work with them. And I guess because we've worked so long outside of the subsidized agricultural sector, We've been disciplined with this, is you have to look at everything on its merit, not just think, well, how can I maximize my income from SFI? Which, if you can, it makes sense to maximize your income from SFI if that's taking your farm in the route you want to go, but not just the farm for it. And then we also focus very much on cost of production. And, the saying goes that turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash flow is reality. And the real thing at the end of the day is we've got to have a good, positive net cash flow. And that's what we're working with our clients to achieve.
I love that saying. So today we're going to be talking about how UK farmers go from value adding to wealth creating and ultimately get the most out of their farms. So just for people to understand, what is the difference between value adding and wealth creating, and what do they mean?
Okay, well, I think this all comes back down to so many farmers we talk to are saying they feel they're on a hamster wheel. They're running faster and faster to get nowhere. It takes a lot of energy, but there's nothing happening. And this was really brought home, I thought, on the last series of Clarkson's Farm. I will refer a lot to Clarkson's Farm because I think Jeremy's taught us so much, and the team, and Charlie and all the team. And where Charlie tells Jeremy and Caleb they made a profit. So Jeremy, we're off down the pub, yippee. But of course, there's no money to go down the pub because, as Charlie said, it's all got to be reinvested for the next crop. And this is where we're at. So we're constantly having to borrow money to reinvest to produce a crop. And I think, and what we're taking is basically the basic resources of our farms, which is the land, the sunlight, the water, the carbon, and our brains, and buying stuff which we then hope to add value to, be it fertilizers or cake, things like that. And I guess I was thinking about this in terms of livestock production. This has been like this probably ever since we've had the empire. Because I can remember my father saying, well, all that happened, when before the war, we had cows, you fed them four pounds of imported cake per gallon, and that's how we weren't taking anything off our farm really. And that's where we got. And I think then in the 70s, when we suddenly upped the inputs we were putting into our arable crops, that went well, because I can remember that the first year we went into using fungicides and growth regulators, and we had an amazing uplift in profit and crops. But after that, it wasn't, and we got on. We were then already on this thing. You daren't stop applying all these inputs for fear that you wouldn't get the crop. And I think what we've got to get away from is not looking at just margins and profit, is to actually start saying, what's our net cash flow for the year, and how do we get to that? And how we have with every cost we've got, is it really necessary? What do you do about that? It's that sort of thing we're getting. So really more again focusing on what's my net cash flow, because that's where our profit comes from, rather than it's quite easy to sit and think, my farm value is going up. For us when we had our farm, great, the farm value is appreciated a lot over the years. But until we sell it, we can't do anything with it. And it's a bit like owning a house. Most of us we own houses. Our houses go up in value, but they're not making us any wealthier. We think we're wealthy, but we're not. So it's just basically how we get is managing our business to have a net positive cash flow.
Okay, so people often assume, are UK farmers rich?
Yeah. Well, Rebecca, what are riches? In many ways, those in the farming industry are rich. Most of us enjoy our work. We find it interesting, and we're always learning something. We work for ourselves. We work in a nice environment, and we set our own hours. And if you want to take this to a extreme, I suggest you listen to the Matt Bowley episode on the Pasture Pod. So he's taken it to an amazing business there working, where he's making good margins and taking plenty of time. But then, if we look at the wealth that people are sitting on, it depends who we're looking at. If we're looking at tenants who now make up only 30% of the farmers, because You know, when I was young, it was 60-70% return. You know, they're set on basically their only wealth is in their livestock and their fixed assets, and very difficult for them to make anything from that. Owner occupiers, yes, that's all, and it's sitting on a big asset in terms of their land. But I mean, historically, as a landlord, the asset was only making 2% per annum, and now it's less. And it just depends. Are you large farmer, a small farmer, anything like that? So you know, and what sector you're in. You know, for example, it seems to be that pigs and poultry until have been pretty consistently profitable. Dairy has been quite profitable with ups and downs, but the arable says that's been ups and downs, whereas the grazing livestock sector has been always very marginal in terms of making any profit. So whilst people are sitting on a big asset, I've got clients say with a 300-acre farm, and they're sitting on 4 million, but not making anything really now, saying farm payment's gone. So this is the where the crux we have. And then so I think yes, but it's that, and it's a bit perhaps having a farm is a bit like having a FTSE 100 index share. You're getting it for you're getting increased value, but you're not getting any cash, and it's moving away from how do we have making more cash out of our. And then in terms of wealth, who is wealthy? Are we as wealthy as Warren Buffett and Elon Musk, or compared to somebody else? It's everything's relative.
Of course. So in terms of, you've worked abroad, so how do UK farmers compare in terms of profitability to farms abroad?
Well, if you come back to the most profitable form of farming is oil palm, and the oil palm and price of palm oil, along with the price of petroleum, basically determine the price of all the other agricultural commodities. And the thing about palm oil is that it's a tree crop. You produce it all the year round. All the energy requirements you need to process the crop come from the crop residues. The fertility in the crop is all returned to the field. So in fact, your variable costs are basically just the cost of harvesting. And so it's always very, very, very profitable. And at the moment that's making probably 1,500, 2,000 pounds per annum per hectare. And that is what drives the constant expansion of the area of the industry, regardless of how you feel about the environmental impact of it. But given that China and India will continue to take all the palm oil, then this is going to carry on. So that side of it is, that's where we are. Then if you look at the States, 79% of what they call small farms have a net cash income of $4,000 per annum, out of which they've got to live and refinance what they're doing. Okay, so they're not in a very good position. But it's quite interesting that 50% of farms in the US are part-time. So, that's the thing I'll come on to a bit later, I'd like to. 65% of the family farms in the US, have a net cash income of $67,000 per annum, out of which, again, they've got to live and reinvest. So they're probably quite like, a lot of farmers here in the UK are at the moment. But of course, and in the US, of course, land prices keep increasing as well, because we've got the likes of Vance and Co, who's running a website to encourage people to invest in farmland, and there's constant drive to invest in farmland. Now I'd like to look at Brazil, which has come to see such a massive producer and influence on what happens in the rest of the world. It's difficult to get any sensible figures out of that, but land prices have doubled in the last 3 years. And in most of Brazil, you're going to get 2 crops a year. Most of it's now done with no-till, and their uptake of biocontrol is amazing. It's dropping out of the chemical control and going to biocontrol. So that's interesting. So there again, all these, they've got more and more commodity coming out, cheaper and cheaper, putting price on commodities everywhere. And they're producing beef, soya, cereals, everything. Looking at Eastern Europe, the figures I can get, I know is we for one stage we were running 16,000 hectares in Romania, and that was quite an eye opener because our average field size was 300 acres. Our biggest field was 2,000 acres, and putting a 300 horsepower tractor to work in that was rather different to the 300 horsepower tractor working on a 5-acre acre field in Devon. And so they're sort of making net profits, large farm net profits, 20% on turnover, around about £200-300 a hectare. So they're making very good money. And in terms of land prices, I have a Romanian French friend of mine who's bought a farm in Romania around about 1998 for $50 a hectare, and it's probably worth $5,000 a hectare now. Australia, cropping farms had very good year before last, but now they're back losing money. And overall in Australia, Australian farms are losing money at the moment. France is interesting. Average farm income €56,000, and a subsidy of 35,000. So again, no one's making any real money out of farming at the moment. And this is the average figure, but of course, there will be people at the top end making a lot of money, people at the bottom end maybe losing money. So it's always looking at what are the winners doing? Do this, and we look at the UK. We look at the averages. Apart from dairy, pigs, and poultry, and horticulture, every other sector is losing money on its agricultural activity in 2024, but making it up with diversification, subsidy, and agri-environment schemes. But as we know, the single farm payment has been slashed back to 7,200. So it's pretty tough, and it's tough for everybody at the moment, and basically driven by these big producers of palm oil, Brazil, and Eastern Europe. And that's real. So we have to look at where we're going to go with those. And I guess the other impact we have also is the Chinese economy on what we're doing, because the Chinese will just keep adapting and improving. The Chinese are the biggest sheep meat producers in the world. So a little upbeat in their sheep production is a big change, like pork production and like that. So
okay.
In terms of UK is about where we are. Sorry if I waffled on.
No, that's fine. So if you wanted to have the most profit,
it's the basics of where we come from.
Yeah. So if you wanted to, if the students listening say, where in the world would you go to have the most profitable farm?
Well, you probably go to Brazil.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Eastern Europe, Eastern, or possibly you start looking at places like Serbia. There's some beautiful land in Serbia.
Yeah.
Or else you start actually looking at there's massive opportunities in Africa.
Okay.
People to go there and do things there.
Okay. So in terms of what we're talking about, so how can UK farmers go from value adding to wealth creating, James?
Right, okay, well, I think what we have to look at, we've got basic resources, as I said before, which is land, sunlight, water, carbon, and our brain. Okay, and basically everything we sell off the farm is a combination of that. So it's really just thinking, make the most of what you've got. And I think someone said to me, someone said, what sort of farmer are you? And he said to me, I'm a profitable farmer. I said, well, pigs, loads, sheep, what? No, he said, I'm a profitable farmer. And perhaps this is where we've got to say, well, actually, no, I'm not a pig farmer, I'm not a pork farmer. We've got quite a lot of new incomers into farming in our business. And it's refreshing the way they look at it. They say, well, I've got resource, I bought my farm. Okay, what am I going to do with it? I'm not thinking, I haven't been forever a dairy farmer or a beef farmer, like that. I've got to do something. And so they basically take and say, okay, what have I got? Okay, and how can I make the most of what I've got? That's really the thing. So it's basically looking at your basic resources and say, okay, what can I produce off the farm without any inputs for a start? And then after that, what if I'm going to use an input, what am I going to get back from that input? Am I going to get more than I'm actually spending on it by a long way in a multiple? That's it. And I think when I think about this, the first thing I do is looking actually what are people like the soil carbon farming and soil farmer of the years are doing. People like Jake Freestone, Andrew Brewer, and all this. It's quite fascinating how they've stripped their farm back to this is what we can produce from our farm with a minimum input, and this is how we do it. And through that, they're focusing. They are generating cash, and they're not tied into things. Just generating. What do I need to buy? And they got off the treadmill of what I must keep buying this stuff to turn it over. That's really what I'm thinking. That's what we're saying at that point. And so it comes down to the specifics of that depend on your farm, but it will be things like looking at number one about all farms is how do I improve my soil biology, because that's what we've done. And I can't say I was guilty of this in 1970, 78. That's it. Get on the fungicide, get all the fertilizer on. It's magic. And I think I've only come to realize over the last 5 or 6 years since reading David Montgomery's book on soils, and then Gabe Brown's book Dirt to Soil was a real because he brings it all together. It's not all theory. It's what a farmer has done with minimal money to make money out of his farm, and it covers all things, not just the soil, but the marketing and succession, everything like that. So it's the thing on that is to look around and see this is my farm. What can I produce with what I've got with a minimum amount of inputs, I think, and then work from there. I say I go around in circles, but it is a bit circular.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, you said earlier, I meant to ask you, 50% of US farms are only part-time. Why is that?
Why is that? Well, because actually it's the same all over a lot of the world. And, look at in Europe, it would be similar. Okay, and we have this thing in the UK. Oh, you're a part-time farmer. Having been a part-time farmer myself, I got very fed up with this, being looked at, because I thought, well, I was doing my job professionally. We had prize-winning stock. I was winning silage competition. Oh, hang on, you're just a part-time hobby farmer. Whereas I guess everywhere else, they're just regarded as being an essential part of the operating system. It's not lifestyle. It is lifestyle, but we're producing whatever we need to produce from land. And I guess and it's quite interesting. You drive across the state. If you drive across the state, you see endless small farms, which are part-time farms. And I guess why do we do it? Because probably we've had a background in it. We like the lifestyle. We like the fact of going and looking at our crops, our stock, whatever. So that's it. But we are an essential part of the business. And part-time farming is a way for people to get into the business, because it's very difficult unless you've got a dad or a wife who's going to give you a farm. How else do you get it? Or it's going to get that and go and work on an oil rig. I had a lot of money working in Saudi Arabia, which gave me some capital to get going. But it is, that's what else.
Brilliant. Okay, so it is another step towards wealth creation, diversifying their income streams beyond the traditional farming practices, would you say?
Well, looking back to this, Rebecca, my grandparents diversified when they started. They were new entrants. They did all sorts of things, really. From ranging from one grandfather was a very early adopter of turkey production in this country, Christmas turkeys. The others did cut flowers and bed and breakfast. My parents diversified. We always had riding school. We had farm shop. My uncles diversified in all sorts of things. So I think it is. But I think in terms of diversification, there's no magic thing. For example, if you want to get in a holiday cottage, you're in the hospitality business, so you've got to like people and want to do it. There's no point, your land agent comes and says, "Oh, convert your business, have a holiday cottage." You've got to manage the people, you've got to manage all the people come in, you've got to manage the cleaners, the turnaround, everything like that. And so it can be a problem. But the real key on terms of diversity is diversity of cropping or livestock, which is, I think, is key, because again, if you to get the most out of your soil, your land, your soil, water, carbon, and sunshine, you need diversity in as much diversity you can in what you're growing in the ground and on the ground. So if you want diversity, so diversity is an essential part of the wealth creation.
Okay,
do
fantastic.
What you have a passion for.
Okay, brilliant. So how do we attract more young people into the farming sector and make the industry more financially attractive to them?
First, sort out the safety issues
Yes.
in farming. It's the most dangerous industry we have in this country, and that has got to be taken. That has got to be resolved first. And then after that, does a certain amount of it is part-time farming. There's got to be a recognition by county councils and other people that part-time farming is valuable. And if you're applying for a council holding, that running it part-time is an option. And the sad thing is, Devon County Council is amalgamating all its council holdings, that fewer and fewer people can get into actual farming itself. If you want to go farming, if not, then you have to find a way. And I was a very inspirational presentation, two presentations on Monday by How Now Brown Cow, I think it is How Now Brown Cow, which is people got into dairy farming in Devon, and another young family who are farming on National Trust property in Devon. We've got it by a partnership. So if you want to go that way, if you want to get into the ancillary industries, then you've got to get training, and it seems to be the only way forward at the moment is going to university. So yeah. And then from after that, it comes up the usual way: patrimony, parsimony, or matrimony. So you've got to save up the money, but or start off small scale. Again, there's lots of people doing it. Just look around and see what people are doing. But good for part-time farmers. That's what I say. Be a part-time farmer first, and the NFU should accept and laud these people rather than running them down all the time.
Absolutely, we need to support them as a country, don't we?
We do, and we also, the NFU needs to look at its publicity and stop moaning all the time, because it makes farming look such a negative industry for the whole country.
So
my father's an NFU chairman.
So how important is recruiting right to ensure that farmers can build wealth?
Absolutely the key, because you're only as good as your people. And I think we've got to look at things in terms you need the right people in the right places, and they need to be motivated. And basically, it's a specialist job. I mean, I've worked in large agribusiness companies where we had personnel departments, but if you don't have a personnel department, it's something you need to have professional help on. And you also need to look at career structure and the fact that people aren't going to be with you all the time. So there will be progression, and it will be people coming into your business and moving on because they want to go on and get other experience and do other things. So I think you've got to go to a professional on that.
So how can a farming business start from today? They've made the decision, we want to head towards wealth creation. What can they do?
The first thing is to start looking around and get an idea of what the assets you have on your farm. Again, it's your land, soil, water, sunshine, carbon, and your brains, and that's it. And then start looking around and see what other people are doing in this space. There's so many good books you can read. I will come back to Gabe Brown, because that is the point I think that gets. It's a farmer for farmers, and after that, there's endless numbers of podcasts and YouTube things you can read to do this, and you can find a lot of information there and decide what we'll do. And then say, okay, well, what will my farm produce? Okay, if I did nothing, and then after that, well, how much more do I need to do to make it produce more? And then something. And then the day is where's it turn out in terms of cash flow. It can cover all sorts of things: no-till, min-till, rotational grazing, whatever. It just depends what happens on your own farm. If you're a very small farm, it might be saying, okay, well, how much more can I sell direct to consumer? That's big, because I think as John Kemp is always saying, sell by the pound, not by the ton. And it's looking at all of these sort of things. But there's plenty of help out there. There's lots of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about educating ourselves, isn't it, at the end of the day?
It is, yes, it is, and, I have to, my mind was a little bit closer. I only went to Groundswell last year. Oh, this is a bit of hippie thing. But in fact, it was amazing. And there is so much things coming on. It's just opening your mind and saying things can be done differently. And I look at my neighbours here in Noseford who've opened their minds to this. It's mind blowing what they're doing. Mind blowing. And they're happier and everything's happier. They stop healthier. And I can just do something in my head. They're making a lot more money now because they're not spending anything.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end now, James. A question I ask every guest is, what do you think is going to be the next big issue for agriculture going forward?
I think climate change is the biggest issue, really, because it just is going to affect the dynamics of what's produced where, how, and why, and that is really but and then moving net zero. But the way I see this also is that moving to net zero, it means that if we're going to move to net zero, we have got to go back to the situation we were in probably 300 years ago, where the farms were producing everything. They were producing our food, they were producing our energy, they're producing all our fibre, they're producing all of our building materials, and so we're going to have to go back to that. And so whilst we may eat less meat, the land is having to produce up to produce the fibre, the building materials, or the energy, and everything else we need, because that's how we're going to get. We're not going to get it all from. Well, we may get it all from solar. Who knows what's going to come? But I think there's a big challenge, a lot of challenge that farms are going to be needed. But farming, what we'll be going back to what we were producing 200 or 300 years ago.
Great discussion, James. You've made some really, really interesting points there, and I'm sure you've given our listeners and viewers lots to think about. Thank you, everybody, for watching and joining us today. And thank you, James. Keep following us. We've got some great new discussions coming up. In a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about agricultural colleges and their role in getting more people into the farming sector. If you have got an interesting topic in agriculture that you would like to talk about, please get in contact with me via Agricultural Recruitment Specialists, which is www.agrirs.com. And if you would like to hear more on new issues and topics within the industry, please follow us on various channels, including Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Just look up Agriculture Live. So thank you very much for joining us. James, would you like to say goodbye?
Oh, well, I don't know. I carry on forever, but I will say goodbye. Thanks very much for having me, everyone else, and everyone else for listening to it. It's been a great experience. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, James. Goodbye.